So which one is better when it comes to making money delivering food? Uber Eats or Domino's Pizza? Well, there's only one real way to find out, right? Hello everyone, this is Elijah with the RideShare Guy, and in this video we're going to be getting some insight on that question I asked just a few seconds ago, which is, for drivers, which one is actually better, being an Uber Eats driver or being a Domino's Pizza driver? And we can actually take being an Uber Eats driver and use that as a stand-in for the gig apps in general. So this really applies to Doordash drivers, Grubhub drivers, and other apps inside the delivery gig economy. As you probably know, you won't really know which one is better unless you have actually done both. So you've been a delivery gig worker and you've also been a Domino's pizza driver. And while I haven't personally been a Domino's pizza driver, I'm actually going to be interviewing one of our subscribers, Robert Phillips, who has been both a Uber Eats driver and a Domino's pizza driver. So he has insight on both sides of the spectrum and he can give an accurate comparison as far as the pros and the cons, and the most obvious one that you're probably wondering about, which one pays more. So with that being said, we're going to move over to the actual interview itself so we can all get some clarity on the differences and similarities between driving for Domino's and being a gig delivery driver. Okay, so we have Robert Phillips with us. He's actually a current Domino's driver. He has experience in the gig economy because he's driven for Uber Eats before and a few other apps when it comes to gig delivery. So we're pretty happy to have you on the call, Robert. And we're going to get some insight on exactly comparing like pizza delivery versus like the delivery when it comes to the gig economy, because there's probably some subtle differences that most people might not be aware of, and we want to make sure to inform our audience about both sides of the coin. So starting out, when you first got started, why pizza delivery or Domino's, like instead of driving for like DoorDash or Uber Eats or these other gig economy apps that deliver food?
Well, for me, the switching over to Domino's was kind of like the COVID pivot. I'd been doing Lyft and Uber and going full steam ahead, and in 2 days it went to crickets down here. I'm right next to Gulf Shores and Orange Beach, so I went from full spring break to, all right, what am I going to do and how long is this going to last? And my son had just started working for Domino's, and I'm like, well, when in doubt, working with my son sounds like a good thing. I've always thought that delivering pizzas sounded like it would be kind of a fun gig, although I've never done it before. Well, I had never done it before. And so there I went, and pretty quickly I was doing about 50 hours a week at Domino's because they were booming.
Hmm, okay. And so that means that you had given Uber Eats and like the food delivery apps a try before you started working for Domino's. Is that correct?
Yes, I most of the time I wasn't real impressed with Uber Eats for the amount that they were paying as compared to when I had passengers. But yes, I had agreed to do it, and sometimes it worked out fine.
Hmm. Okay. As someone who's driven for Uber and Uber Eats, I can kind of relate in terms of like the pay difference because generally speaking, I did like rideshare just a tad bit more, but that's just my personal opinion.
Kind of varies for the day for me. Some days it's nice to not have to deal with people and all the stupid things that they manage to do or think that you should do for them, and it's not a big deal.
Plus, we all have our solitary moments where we want to blast our music, I'm sure, right?
For me, it's a lot of audiobooks, but yes.
Right. Okay. Did you ever find that your experience with the food delivery gig apps kind of carried over into your job with Domino's? Did they kind of give you an advantage in any way?
I had a huge advantage over, I would say, 95% of the new drivers, because since I'd been doing the delivery and Uber and Lyft, I knew my area back and forward, knew where lots of the stupid places that the GPS is wrong and people get lost, and dealing with all that kind of crap. Not to mention all the shortcuts and which roads to avoid at what time of the day.
Mm. Yeah, there's a lot of advantages that you just broke them down, but we might not have thought of that would carry over into a space like pizza delivery that you were already doing as a Uber Eats driver or a DoorDash driver. So that does make a lot of sense. So when it comes to, I know people want to probably hear this the most, but like when it comes to the pay, like what was different? Was it a big difference in pay from like when you drove for Uber Eats and DoorDash and now you're driving for Domino's, or was it about the same?
I would say it was close to the same amount of money that I got to sometimes. Now, it was pretty similar. The biggest difference is that, well, with all the gigs and all that, I could keep track of my mileage and write off at the IRS standard deduction, which is essentially putting a whole lot of tax-free money in my pocket that is taxable when you're a pizza driver, because they were only paying $1.50 per delivery as far as quote, for my vehicle.
So you're saying there were some expenses, advantages to being a gig worker versus driving with a pizza delivery?
Well, correct, because most of the days I'd have $100 or more worth of cash in my pocket, but then I have to take the Social Security and Medicare out of that, and I don't get a write off my gas and those things. Well, not gas, but I mean the 55, 57 cents a mile, depending on the year.
Standard
That's
mileage deduction.
Reducing of taxable income.
Right. And for everyone listening, if y'all are curious about how taxes work as a gig worker and you want to maximize your deductions, we're going to leave some resources for you in the description. So you can be sure to maximize your earnings by taking advantage of the deductions that we can as gig workers. So overall, what would make you pick, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you prefer like driving for Domino's Pizza over like the gig apps like Uber Eats and just delivery. It's talking about delivery, but like Uber Eats, DoorDash, etc. What makes you prefer that over the gig apps, or do you prefer the gig apps? I'm not sure.
The biggest difference for me is that I was actually working regular time shifts, or I would tell them that they can call me if they got really busy, as compared to just being able to flip on my app and then look at it and, oh, I don't want to do that one because it's not going to be profitable. With Domino's, you get sent to wherever and it might be 15 miles round trip for my delivery. And I'm generally lucky if I get more than a $5 to $7 tip for that.
Okay. And that's a good segue into the customer interactions. So based on what are the customer interactions like when you're working for Domino's? And did you find you got more tips when you're a pizza driver versus driving for like Uber Eats or DoorDash?
Definitely got a lot more tips, but I would say it's a much greater percentage of my pay was based on the tips too. Because when I was on the road, it started off at $4.55 an hour while I was driving around. And then they just bumped it up a couple months ago to like $6.50 an hour for when I was out on the road.
Okay, nice. So does Domino's provide like any gear that you would need as a delivery driver, like cup holders or pizza bags or anything like that? Or did you have to go and get that gear for yourself?
The pizza bags they provide, and we're expected to use their bags. Any of the rest of it, like my big bright flashlight so you can see house numbers and those things. Obviously, I already had that in my car and it was very helpful. Not to mention GPS and all of the rest of that.
Just some more tangible examples of how your experience, like with Uber Eats and the other apps, really just carried over into when you start delivering pizza, because some of the stuff that could assist you, it was already in your back seat.
Very much so.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now, this is a question that a lot of drivers are probably wondering, but you're probably familiar with the concept of stacked deliveries. We used to work for Uber Eats, right?
You're just talking about doing like picking up 2 food orders at the same place and delivering
Hmm.
them?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
correct. Does
I
that
never knew it was a stack delivery, but
oh yeah, yeah, people have given it a terminology nowadays.
okay.
But does that happen with Domino's in terms of that same concept where you have multiple deliveries that you're that are in your card and you're delivering to multiple addresses?
That's about the only time that I want to work, is when I can take more than one delivery at a time, because I get paid based on how many deliveries that I have and tipping opportunities. So there's been huge shortages of drivers for Domino's, just like for Lyft and Uber and the other things. And there's been times on busy Friday nights that the whole board is red, and it's like, take as many as you can. So I may stack up 4 to 6 deliveries at a time. And obviously, the more deliveries you do, it's the mileage doesn't always change all that much. So that's
Oh,
where I'm most efficient.
yeah, that's interesting. So that's a good parallel because I know, and maybe these companies could do a better job at matching, but like the stack orders on like Uber Eats and Doordash may not necessarily all be like in a straight line on the way. So you may end up driving more mileage or might be inconvenient. So like I always found a lot of times I would just pass and just go ahead and deliver my one delivery. But it seems like with a Domino's, in almost every situation, you want those multiple deliveries because they do a good job in making sure everything is on the way. Because part of their reputation's on the line, I'm pretty sure, so that's part of it. But it definitely works out for you as a driver too.
Well, for me, I had a whole lot more control with Domino's,
Hmm.
because I would see the heat map and be able to say, okay, these are the deliveries that make the most sense. So I would route my own orders, or if
Oh,
there actually had staff in the store that could do it, they would have the deliveries grouped together closer. But I'm also in a very different market than you might be in
hmm.
that, I'm right next to Gulf Shores in Orange Beach, Alabama. So it's a
Hmm.
tourist market, it's spread out, but it's not a highly dense population like I'm guessing you might be in one of the coastal cities. But yeah, I don't know where you're from, but there's a lot of Midwest cities that are the same way.
Right. I'm in the Dallas Fort Worth area, but
Well,
just
that
that.
definitely qualifies in the very
Yeah,
dense population. So yeah.
yeah. But just that concept alone sounds superior to the way like these other companies do stacked orders. So that's an interesting dynamic. So when it comes to a lot of people probably wondering if we go back to customers, like, do you find that like what happens if a customer complains, and if they do complain, exactly where do they complain? Do they call a number? Do they go to the store, or what's your experience with that?
Yes, all the above. Sometimes they'll vent at me. Um, for the most part, I've just gotten to the point in my life where it's really easy to say, I'm sorry you're not happy. What would you like me to do about it? But, I don't really say the what would you like me to do about it, because with Domino's, for instance, I have no control over it.
Right.
Other than maybe there's been once or twice where I'm really sorry, here, just give it to them if it was like a really extreme situation. But I've just in Don in both things, I guess I would say is similar in that I have very little control over being able to make any adjustments or do anything, um, other than with Domino's. It's, if I forgot to bring a food item or forgot their 2 liter, which has been known to happen when you get really busy, then I'm sorry, I'll have to go back to the store and get you another one, or I can get you a credit on your order. And with Uber
Mhm.
Eats, trying to talk to a human being is like difficult, or if not impossible, 50 to 70% of the time.
I definitely know what you mean there.
Yeah, I had an Uber Eats delivery last night that I showed up. Taco Bell was closed at 10:30 at night, and it's like Uber finally actually added to the app reasons for not delivering. Store is closed. Before, I didn't even have that option as of just a couple months ago. but I didn't get paid anything for driving to Taco Bell.
Oh, a lot of comparisons. All of them are pretty valid. So, speaking of which, so let's say on Uber Eats, if enough customer interactions happen, it is a stigma that deactivation could happen. You know, same goes for the other gig apps. If a customer if customers are complaining on Domino's, like, does anything happen in the sense of like, are you at risk of getting deactivated? Obviously, deactivated is a term I'm using, but like, are there repercussions?
I would say there's a very low chance of that right now.
Hmm.
Number one, because I don't have those problems. And if I do, it's so isolated that it's pretty obvious that it's that one unicorn customer that's pissed off at the world and is never going to be happy.
Y'all have those.
And a couple of times when I want to tell somebody to F off and just leave, and I would say I would be less likely to do that at delivering pizza versus the Uber version. You know what? Your delivery's over. I turn around and I can leave. Or if they get abusive on the phone, I have to put up with more crap on the Domino's side. Actually, in a lot of ways, I would say the gig app is better if my interaction is on the phone with them, because I can't find them. They've got the wrong address. They didn't drop the PIN correctly. GPS is messing up or whatever. If somebody gets abusive with me when I'm on like trying to find a rider for Lyft and Uber, it's like, screw you, I'm going to cancel the ride, because if you're abusive now, I don't want to have any more interaction with you. And Domino's, I'm at least obligated to follow through some more. And I've had a couple times where I came back and say, they started swearing and, you know, I'm done with this person. But that's very rare. Although it's fairly rare with Lyft and Uber also, because it seems like in the last year, people have become more understanding overall and just appreciating that we're actually out there doing it.
Yeah, definitely in 2020, I think I got the most tips I've ever gotten, like ever. People were definitely more appreciative just in general. I didn't bump into any issues with customers getting mad over meager stuff. Even if an issue did occur, they doesn't get mad over it. If something has to carry over into the future from all this, I would love if that's stuck for delivery drivers in general, not just gig apps, but Domino's, Pizza, and everything.
Oh, I definitely agree.
So I would say that's a good place to conclude the interview. We definitely appreciate you coming on, Robert. And for those of y'all in the comments section, you know, let us know what you think about this. And also, do you have experience driving for Domino's or any of the pizza delivery services? And also, if you've been driving for Uber, Uber Eats, Doordash, etc., how do you feel this compares based on this interview? We'd love to hear what y'all think about that in the comment section below. We appreciate you giving us your time, Robert, and you take it easy.
Well, thanks for chatting with me. It was interesting.